My name is Maya Reeves. I'm 29 years old, and 3 weeks ago, I nearly died alone in a hospital room while my family watched my brother audition for a reality TV show in Las Vegas. I didn't know I wasn't alone until I woke up. The chair beside my bed wasn't empty. My mother calls every Sunday at 7 p.m. Not because she misses me. Not because she wants to know how my week went or whether I remembered to eat lunch. Sunday at 7 is when she calls to update me on what they need. "Honey," she said 2 months ago, in the particular voice she uses when she needs something soft and sweet, like sugarcoating something sour underneath. "Your brother's equipment loan came due. It's $480, and his landlord raised the rent again. He needs first and last for the new place. That's $2,200. She paused. "Oh, and your father's truck needs new tires before winter. Another $350. I was standing in my kitchen in Portland eating cereal for dinner at 10 p.m. because I hadn't had time to grocery shop in 11 days. I did the math automatically now. I didn't even need paper. "Mom, that's over $3,000. Maya." Her voice didn't change, but something behind it did. "Your brother is 24. He's trying to build something real. You know how competitive the music industry is. You have a stable job, a salary. You don't have anyone depending on you." What I wanted to say was, I'm the one depending on me. My rent, my student loans, the savings account I keep draining to zero every 3 months. But I didn't say that. I never say that. "I'll send it tonight," I said. "Tonight would be wonderful. The landlord needs it by tomorrow morning." After she hung up, I opened the spreadsheet I've kept since I was 24. 5 years of records. Every dollar I've transferred home. Every emergency. Every loan that became a gift the moment I gave it. I scrolled to the bottom and looked at the total. $163,400. I sat with that number for a long time. I earn $98,000 a year. After taxes, I bring home about $72,000. I've sent home an average of $32,000 per year for 5 years. That's 44% of my take-home income. I looked at the category column. My brother's car insurance. My brother's recording studio sessions. My brother's tour to 3 bars in the Pacific Northwest that drew a combined audience of 40 people. My parents' mortgage shortfall, June. My parents' mortgage shortfall, August. My father's credit card. My father's credit card again. My father's credit card again. I texted my brother. He replied 30 seconds later with a voice memo. He'd recorded a new song. Did I want to hear it? He was really proud of this one. Oh, and could I send the money as Venmo instead of Zelle this time? His Zelle was being weird. I sent the money. Then I went back to work. The thing about working at a startup is that the walls between your job and your life dissolve until there is no wall at all. I was the lead product analyst at Meridian Analytics, a company building real-time data visualization tools for healthcare systems. We had 11 months of runway left when our VP of engineering quit in September. Our CEO, a 38-year-old woman named Dana Park, who communicated almost entirely in bullet points and urgency, moved his entire workload onto 3 people. I was one of them. The product launch was scheduled for November 14th. That was Dana's line in the sand. Everything else was negotiable. That date wasn't. I was sleeping 4 hours a night. I was ignoring a dull ache in my lower right abdomen that had been building for about 5 days. My doctor had mentioned at my last checkup that I should manage my stress levels. I hadn't scheduled a follow-up. I hadn't had time. In the middle of all of this, my mother called about Las Vegas. My brother had gotten an audition. An actual audition for a televised talent competition, one of those late-night cable shows that cycles through 500 hopefuls a season. It was scheduled for November 9th. In Las Vegas, my mother had already priced the flights and a hotel on the Strip. "It's 4 nights," she said. "The flights are $700 each, so $2,100 for the 3 of us. The hotel is $140 a night, so $560 total. And we'll need spending money." She paused. "We were thinking $3,000 should cover everything." "Mom." I pressed my hand flat against my desk to steady myself. The ache in my side had sharpened into something more pointed. "That's almost $5,000. It's your brother's big break, Maya. You know how long he's worked for this." "I'll think about it," I said. The flights need to be booked by tomorrow. The prices go up after that. I sent $4,800 that night. I told myself it was an investment in his future. I told myself a lot of things. On November 7th, 2 days before my family flew to Las Vegas, I almost mentioned the pain in my side to Dana during our afternoon check-in. I opened my mouth, then her phone rang, and she held up one finger, and the moment passed, and I closed my mouth and went back to my screen. I finished the last compliance documentation at 2:17 a.m. on November 8th. I remember the exact time because I was about to send the email to Dana when the pain in my right side stopped being a dull ache and became something else entirely. White, sharp, the kind of pain that has no gradations. I tried to stand up. I couldn't. I remember reaching for my phone. I remember typing 911 and not being sure if I'd actually hit send. I remember the floor coming up very fast. The paramedics found me at 2:29 a.m. The office building's overnight security guard had heard the crash when my chair went over. Perforated appendix. That's what the ER doctor told me later, though I wasn't conscious to hear it. The appendix had likely been showing signs of distress for days, possibly over a week. The perforation had caused peritonitis, an infection spreading through the abdominal cavity. By the time the ambulance reached Providence Portland Medical Center, I had a fever of 104.1 degrees and a blood pressure reading that made the paramedic's face go very still. The ER team called my emergency contact at 2:45 a.m. No answer. They called again at 3:20. No answer. At 5 a.m., my mother finally picked up. By that point, I was already in surgery. The surgery lasted 4 hours and 11 minutes. I don't remember any of it. What I know, I learned from a night nurse named Priya Osman, who has been doing this work for 9 years and who told me things in that careful, a matter-of-fact way that people develop when they've delivered too many hard truths. My family arrived at the hospital at 8:40 a.m. My mother, my father, my brother. They had a 10:15 flight to catch. My brother didn't come into the recovery unit. He waited in the lobby, Priya told me, scrolling through his phone. She'd walked past him twice. My mother spoke with the attending surgeon for 14 minutes. She asked 3 questions. Was I stable? How long would I be here? And what was the insurance situation? The surgeon used the phrase serious but stable. My mother heard the word stable and stopped listening. At 9:50 a.m., while I was still sedated in post-surgical recovery, my family left. They had a flight to catch. The audition was tomorrow. The tickets were non-refundable. My mother left a voicemail. 17 seconds. I listened to it 6 days later. Maya, honey, the doctor said you're going to be okay. We have to catch our flight. You know how long Tyler has waited for this. Your dad and I will call the hospital every day. Just rest and feel better. We'll be back by the 14th. You're the strong one. You'll be fine. She didn't say she loved me. She said I was the strong one. Then she hung up. My brother posted a video to his Instagram stories at 10:03 a.m. The 3 of them at PDX, Gate C14, Southwest flight to Las Vegas. My mother was wearing sunglasses and smiling. My father had his arm around my brother. My brother was making the peace sign at the camera. The caption said, "Vegas, baby. Watch out for Tyler Reeves." 47 people watched that story within the first hour, including one person none of them had considered. At 2 p.m., on November 8th, a woman walked into Providence Portland Medical Center. She approached the reception desk and gave my room number before the receptionist had finished her greeting. She was approximately 60 years old, silver white hair worn in a neat braid, a dark green coat. She carried a canvas tote bag and walked like someone who was trying to be calm and not entirely succeeding. "I'm here to see Maya Reeves," she said. "Room 314. The receptionist looked up. "And you are?" "Eleanor Whitfield." She paused almost imperceptibly. "I'm her grandmother." She was given a visitor badge. She took the elevator to the 3rd floor. She walked down the hallway and stood outside my room for a long time before she went in. Priya saw her. Later she told me that the woman sat in the chair beside my bed for nearly 2 hours. She didn't speak much, she just looked at my face. She rearranged my blanket once when it slipped. She filled my water glass from the pitcher on the bedside table. She sat with her hands folded in her lap and watched the monitors like she was learning their language. Before she left, she took something out of her tote bag and set it on the bedside table. A slim paperback, Mary Oliver's Devotions. She opened the front cover and wrote something in pencil. Then she tucked it beside the water glass and left. She came back the next day, and the day after that, and every day after that until I woke up. I opened my eyes on November 13th. White ceiling, the smell of antiseptic and plastic, the sound of monitors that had apparently been keeping me company while I was somewhere else entirely. I turned my head. The chair beside my bed was occupied. An older woman. Silver white hair in a braid, green eyes. She was reading, her glasses halfway down her nose, and she looked up the moment I moved. She stood up immediately. "I'll get the nurse," she said, already moving toward the door. "Wait," I said. My voice came out like something dragged over gravel. "Who are you?" She stopped, turned around, and for a moment her face did something complicated, relief and grief, and something that looked terrifyingly like love, all at once. "My name is Eleanor Whitfield," she said. I looked at this stranger who had apparently been sitting beside my bed while I was unconscious. "Why are you here?" She didn't answer immediately. She said, "Let me get Priya first. You've been asleep for 5 days. You need water, and you need your vitals checked." A beat. "Then we'll talk." My mother hadn't come, Priya told me gently, matter-of-factly, in the way of someone who has learned that straightforward is kinder than softened. My family was in Las Vegas. They'd called the hospital twice. They'd been told I was stable and sleeping. They were scheduled to return November 14th. My brother's audition had gone well, by the way. He'd made it to the second round. I lay in that bed and thought about the $4,800 I had transferred 7 days ago and said nothing. I asked about the chair. About Eleanor Whitfield. Priya handed me the visitor log on an iPad. 6 consecutive entries. November 8th through 13th. Eleanor Whitfield. Arrival and departure times listed for each day. 2 to 4 hours per visit. No other names. No family members. Just this woman, I had never met. I also asked about the book on my bedside table. Priya told me the woman had left it the first day. I opened the front cover. In pencil, in careful handwriting. For Maya. You were never forgotten. E. W. I turned this inscription over in my mind for a long time. Eleanor came back that afternoon. She sat in the same chair and folded her hands in her lap and waited for me to start. "How do you know me?" I said. She looked at her hands. "That is not a short answer. I've been asleep for 5 days. I have time." Something shifted in her face. Almost a smile. "You sound exactly like your father when he was your age." My father's name is Frank Reeves. He grew up in Beaverton, Oregon. He has one sibling, a sister named Carol who lives in Phoenix. His parents, according to every family story I've ever heard, died before I was born. His mother of a heart attack when he was 22. His father 2 years later. Grief, they always said. My father's mother died before I was born, I said. Eleanor Whitfield looked at me steadily. "No," she said, "she didn't. The story she told me took 2 hours. I interrupted 11 times. I cried twice, though I was trying not to. Eleanor was Frank Reeves's mother. She had married once, divorced when Frank was 7, remarried a man named Whitfield when Frank was 11. She and Frank had been close, had always been close, until my mother came into the picture at a family gathering in 1995. Eleanor hadn't liked my mother. She'd said so, once, to Frank. That was a mistake she spent the next 30 years paying for. When Frank and my mother got married in 1997, Eleanor was not invited to the wedding. She was told it was a small ceremony. She found out later it had 58 guests. When I was born in 1996 before the wedding, something my family has always been vague about, Eleanor called the hospital to ask about her grandchild. My mother took the call. My mother told her the baby hadn't survived. A stillbirth. She was very sorry. Eleanor believed this for 21 years. 21 years of thinking I didn't exist. 21 years of a grief she couldn't fully explain to anyone, because explaining it meant explaining the rift, the estrangement, all of it. She'd sent Frank letters. He'd returned them unopened. She didn't know if he'd ever seen them. 8 years ago, she'd hired a private investigator. Not specifically looking for me, she'd wanted to reconnect with Frank, to try one more time after her second husband passed, and she found herself wanting her son back. The investigator had given her a full family report. She'd sat in her car in a parking lot in Eugene for 45 minutes when she read my name. Maya Reeves, 21 years old, University of Oregon, junior year. Major, statistics. Alive. She'd driven home. She'd made a cup of tea she didn't drink. She'd sat at her kitchen table until midnight, trying to understand what kind of person tells a grandmother her grandchild is dead. She hadn't contacted me directly. She didn't know how. She didn't know what I knew, what I'd been told, what damage showing up unannounced might do, so she watched. From a distance, the way people do when they're afraid that getting closer might cost them the one thing they have left. She found out about my college scholarship situation through the investigator. I'd taken out significant loans, was working 2 jobs. She established a small private foundation the following spring, the Whitfield Education Fund. I received a grant letter in April of my junior year. No essay required, no interview, $14,000, renewable annually. It covered my last 2 years. The letter said it was merit-based. I stared at Eleanor. The scholarship. Yes, that was you. Yes. I thought about the night I'd gotten that letter. I'd sat on the floor of my dorm room and cried for half an hour because I'd been so close to dropping out. I'd called my mother. She'd said, "Don't let it go to your head. It's just money. You still have loans." She'd seemed almost irritated. Now I understood why. "Does she know?" I asked. "My mother, does she know you're here?" "She doesn't know I exist," Eleanor said. "As far as she's concerned, I'm a dead woman." She said this without bitterness, which I found more devastating than anger would have been. "And my father?" Eleanor looked at her hands. "I don't know what your father knows," she said quietly. "I don't know what she's told him. I don't know if he's seen my letters. I don't know if he thinks about me. I've stopped trying to know." And you. That night, after Eleanor left and Priya dimmed the lights, I borrowed the charge cord from the nurse's station and spent an hour on my phone. I searched Eleanor Whitfield, Portland, Oregon. I found a retired school teacher with 31 years at Lincoln High School. Faculty of the Year, twice. A modest online presence, a Facebook profile updated occasionally, photos of a garden, a golden retriever named Scout, a book club. In one photo, she was standing at a school graduation, surrounded by former students, laughing at something off camera. She had green eyes. She was tall. I am 5'8". My mother is 5'4". My father is 5'9". My brother is 5'7". I have green eyes. My mother has brown eyes. My father has brown eyes. My brother has brown eyes. When I was 14, I asked my mother why my eyes were a different color from everyone else's. She'd stared at me for a moment with an expression I couldn't read. "It skips generations," she said. "Stop asking strange questions." I looked at Eleanor's eyes in the Facebook photo for a long time. I also searched the Whitfield Education Fund. It was real. Small, private, incorporated in Oregon, in 2005. I found the grant disbursement records. I found my name. 3 years running. Then I found something else. The foundation had made one other notable disbursement in the last 5 years. A contribution to Meridian Analytics, a small workforce development grant issued in 2021, the year I joined the company. The grant was listed as supporting training and development for early career data professionals. I had been the only early career data professional hired that year. I put my phone down. The monitors beeped. Outside the window, Portland was doing what Portland does in November. A slow, gray drizzle that makes the whole city look like it's thinking about something sad. I picked the Mary Oliver book up from the bedside table and opened it to a random page. A poem called When Death Comes. I read the last lines twice. I looked at the inscription again. You were never forgotten. I was still holding the book when my mother walked into my room on November 14th. She had come straight from the airport. She was wearing the same floral blouse she'd left in, a little wrinkled from travel. She was carrying a convenience store get-well balloon, the foil kind, silver with a smiley face. It kept bumping against the door frame. "Oh, Maya!" She rushed to the bed. She hugged me with one arm, the balloon string in her other fist. You look pale. Are you eating? Have the doctors talked to you today? She pulled back and looked at my face, with that particular expression she gets when she's assessing a situation, not quite worry, more like inventory. Mom? I said. I need to ask you something. Of course. But first, Tyler wanted me to tell you he made it to the semifinals. Can you believe it? Semifinals, Maya. He's so talented. If you'd seen him up there. Mom. I kept my voice level. Who is Eleanor Whitfield? The balloon string went slack in her hand. The color change in her face was gradual, then sudden, like watching a light dim, and then go out all at once. Where did you hear that name? She's been here every day, I said. She sat in that chair while I was unconscious. She paid my medical bills. I paused. All $87,000 of them. My mother sat down in the chair. Not by choice, I think. More like her legs decided for her. 87, she stopped. How did she even know you were here? She said she's been watching over me for 8 years. From a distance. I kept my eyes on her face. She told me she's Dad's mother. She told me you told her I was dead. My mother's jaw set. Maya, it was complicated. You told her I was stillborn. I was protecting my marriage. I was a baby. I was 23 years old. Her voice cracked slightly. Your grandmother hated me from the moment she met me. She called me manipulative. She told your father I was wrong for him. She would have poisoned everything. I couldn't have her in our lives. So, you told her I didn't exist. I told her what I had to tell her to make her go away. And it worked. For 20 years, it worked. I looked at this woman who had carried me and raised me and called me every Sunday at 7 p.m. to tell me what she needed from me. She paid for my last 2 years of college, I said. Did you know that? The scholarship I got junior year. That was the Whitfield Education Fund. That was her. My mother's mouth opened. You told me not to let it go to my head, I said. You told me I just got lucky. I didn't know. You've been calling me every Sunday for 5 years, asking me to cover Tyler's rent and Dad's credit card and Brittany's whatever and the mortgage and the car insurance and the utilities. My voice was steady. I was surprised by how steady it was. $163,000. Mom, I have a spreadsheet. I have every transfer logged, dated, and categorized. And the whole time, the only person who was actually investing in my life, without asking for anything back, was a woman you told was dead. My mother's face was doing something I'd never seen it do before. Not defensiveness, not the sharpened voice control she uses when she needs to redirect a conversation. Something underneath all of that. Something raw. She would have taken him from me, she said. Your father. She would have worked on him until he left. You don't know what she was like. I know what she's like now, I said. She sat in that chair for 6 days while you were in Las Vegas watching Tyler sing. He made the semifinals. I almost died. The word almost sat between us like an object neither of us could pick up. My mother looked at the silver balloon. It had drifted toward the ceiling, tugging gently at the string in her hand. I thought you were stable, she said finally. The doctor said, stable. The doctor said serious but stable, she told me. You heard the first word and stopped listening to the rest. I looked at the door. Through the glass, I could see the hallway, the nurse's station, the elevator, the ordinary machinery of a hospital floor. The same way you've heard what you needed from me for 5 years and stopped listening to the rest. My mother set the balloon string on the bedside table. It floated up again, pulling softly toward the fluorescent light. What are you saying? I'm saying that woman in the green coat knew I wasn't really alone, even when I thought I was. I'm saying she paid $87,000 for a granddaughter she'd never been allowed to meet. I looked at my mother. I'm saying I've spent 29 years trying to earn something from you that you were giving away to everyone except me. That is not fair, Maya. I know. Very little about this is. My mother stood up. She had composed herself. I could see the effort of it, the familiar reassembly of control. I think you need rest. We can talk about this when you're home. I am going to need some time, I said. I need you not to call on Sundays for a while. I need a break from the transfers. I need to think. Maya, I'm not cutting you off. I'm not making any permanent decisions from a hospital bed, but I need space. I looked at the door again. And I need you to tell Dad the truth. About Eleanor. About all of it. He deserves to know that his mother has been alive this whole time thinking her grandchild was dead. My mother picked up her purse. She looked at me for a long moment. Then she looked at the chair beside my bed, the chair Eleanor had occupied for 6 days, and something moved through her face that I couldn't name. She left without taking the balloon. I watched it float against the ceiling, slow and silver, for a long time after she'd gone. Eleanor came back the following afternoon. She brought Scout, the golden retriever, in a therapy dog vest that I suspected she had obtained specifically for this occasion. Scout rested his enormous head on my blanket and sighed with great satisfaction. Eleanor sat in her chair. She didn't ask about my mother. She just looked at me with those green eyes, patient as a person who has learned the hard way how to wait. She came yesterday, I said. I know, Priya told me. I have a lot of questions. I assumed you would. About my dad. About whether you want to see him. About what you want from me, if anything. I scratched Scout's ear. About who you actually are. Those all seem like reasonable questions, she said. I also want to know about the book. Why Mary Oliver? She smiled. It was the first full smile I'd seen from her, and it rearranged her whole face. Because when I found out you were alive, the first thing I did was go to Powell's and buy every book of poetry I could carry. I didn't know what else to do with myself. Mary Oliver helped. She looked at the book on the table. She talks a lot about paying attention. About showing up for your own life. A pause. I thought you might need to hear that right now. I thought about the spreadsheet on my laptop. The 5 years of Sunday calls. The $163,000. The protein bars at my desk at midnight. I haven't been showing up for my own life, I said. No, Eleanor said, gently. But you're here now. I left the hospital on November 18th, 10 days after I'd arrived. Eleanor drove me home. We didn't talk much. We listened to the radio, a public station playing something classical, and watched the city move past the windows in the rain. At a red light, she reached into her tote bag and handed me a shoebox tied with twine. What is this? Open it at home, she said. Not now. I opened it that evening, sitting on my kitchen floor with a cup of tea. Inside were 29 birthday cards, one for every year of my life. Small cards, each with a handwritten note and a folded $50 bill. The handwriting had changed slightly over the decades, gotten a little looser with age, but it was unmistakably the same hand. I had received these cards every year. I'd kept them in a drawer because they came from a family friend, my mother had always said. Whenever I asked, someone who knew your father back in the day. Don't make a big deal of it. I sat with those 29 cards spread around me on the kitchen floor for a long time. 29 years of $50. Not the money was nothing. The knowing. The fact that someone had sat down every single year and chosen a card and written a note and thought about a girl she had never been allowed to meet. The notes were small things. Hope your birthday is wonderful. Wishing you happiness this year. You are so loved, even when you don't know it. Year 12. I hear you're doing very well in school. I'm so proud. Year 18. You're headed to college. You are going to do remarkable things. Year 21. This year changed everything for me. I hope it's wonderful for you too. I understood year 21 now. That was the year she'd hired the investigator. The year she'd found out. Year 29, this year's card, which had arrived in September and which I'd assumed was from one of my father's old colleagues, said simply, I hope this is the year everything becomes clear. I don't know how long I sat on that floor. Long enough for the tea to go cold. Long enough for the rain outside to build and ease and build again. My phone showed 7 missed calls from my mother over the past 4 days. 2 from my brother. Both voice memos, new songs. Did I want to hear them? Also, could I Venmo him? 1 text from my father. Brief and unlike him. Maya, call me when you can. I need to talk to you. I called my father back first. He'd found out. My mother had told him, or maybe he'd overheard something, or maybe the weight of 30 years had finally become too heavy to carry in silence. His voice on the phone was the voice of a man who had just discovered the floor of a room he thought he knew was actually made of something else entirely. My mother is alive, he said. Yes. A long silence. Your mother told me she died. Before you were born. She told me her heart gave out. I know, she told me. He stopped, started again. I sent flowers. To a funeral. I cried at a grave. Maya, I cried at a grave. I didn't say anything. Sometimes there's nothing to say. She wants to see me? He asked. His voice had gone very young. I think so, I said. I think she has for a long time. My brother's audition made it to the quarterfinals of the competition. He was eliminated in the third round by a 17-year-old from Tulsa who sang Carole King and made every judge cry. My brother called me from the airport, outraged, certain the process was rigged. He needed money for the flight home because he'd spent his cash at a poker table and his card was declined. I told him I was still recovering from surgery. Right, he said. But, like it's just a transfer. You don't have to do anything. I can't right now, I said. Silence on the line. Then, seriously? Seriously. He hung up. He called my mother. My mother called me. I let it go to voicemail. I got back to Meridian on December 2nd. Dana had held my position. The product had launched on time. 2 of my colleagues had carried my workload across the finish line, and they were both, justifiably, exhausted and heroic. Dana pulled me into her office on my first day back and told me we needed to talk about sustainability, about team structure, about the fact that one person should not be a single point of failure for a company's entire operations function. She gave me a raise and a direct report. I updated my spreadsheet, added a new column, transfers to family, November, 0, December, 0. It felt like the strangest thing I'd ever recorded. It also felt like breathing. Eleanor and I had coffee on December 7th, and again on the 14th. On the 21st, she had me over for dinner and made pot roast, and we sat at her kitchen table with Scout at our feet and talked until 11 p.m. About nothing particularly important, her book club, my job, a documentary we'd both seen. What Scout had destroyed in the garden that week. At one point she refilled my tea and set the mug down in front of me and said, "Is this strange for you? I want you to tell me if it's strange." I thought about it honestly. "It's a little strange," I said. "But it's a good strange." She nodded. "I'll take a good strange." My father called Eleanor on December 10th. I don't know what they said to each other. He didn't tell me, and I didn't ask, but he called me afterward, and he was crying, quietly, in the way men cry when they're trying not to. He said he was sorry. He didn't specify for what exactly. I think he wasn't entirely sure. "She kept the letters you returned," I told him. "All of them. She has them in a box." He didn't say anything for a moment. "She's got a golden retriever named Scout," I said. "He's enormous. He's wonderful." A sound on the phone that might have been a laugh. "My parents are not doing well." My mother stopped calling on Sundays after the second week of silence. My father has been staying at his brother-in-law's house in Beaverton. They're not divorced. They're in that particular limbo that happens when the truth becomes too large to live alongside. I don't know what will happen to them. I know it's not my problem to solve. My brother is waiting for my mother to solve his money problem. He'll be waiting a while. I went back to the hospital in January to thank Priya. I brought her coffee and flowers, which she waved off, but then accepted. She told me Eleanor had come in to visit me every single day, including the days I was unconscious, even the days when there was nothing to do but sit. "You had good people," Priya said. "More than you knew." I've thought about that phrase a lot since. There's something people say about family that it's the people you're born to, the blood you share, the name on your birth certificate. And for most of my life I believed that, even when the evidence was pointing somewhere else entirely. I sent the money and answered the calls and showed up for every emergency that turned out to be a request, because that's what you do for family. Even when it cost me everything. Even when it left me alone in a hospital room at 2:30 in the morning with a fever of 104. A woman I had never met drove an hour in the rain to sit beside my bed for 6 days straight. She brought a golden retriever and a book of poems and 29 birthday cards in a shoebox. She paid $87,000 for someone she'd been told was dead and asked the hospital to keep her name out of it. She sat in the empty chair because she thought I shouldn't be alone. She stayed long after she had any obligation to stay. Who is family? Is it the people who share your last name but treat your bank account like a resource and your emergencies like an inconvenience? Or is it the person who wrote "You are so loved," even when you don't know it on a card every year for 29 years, and mailed it to a girl she wasn't allowed to know? My mother chose the airport. She chose the non-refundable tickets. She chose the balloon on the last day. The foil convenience store balloon she brought because she knew she should bring something. Eleanor Whitfield chose the chair. Every single day, she chose the chair. If there is a version of you reading this who has been making yourself smaller to fit into a space that was never big enough, who has been sending the money and answering the calls and telling yourself this is just what love costs, I want you to look around. Look carefully at who is showing up for your life when it's inconvenient, when there's nothing to gain, when the room is quiet and there are no cameras and no applause and no return on the investment. And then I want you to ask yourself, who has been sitting in the chair beside your bed? And who has been buying foil balloons at the airport gift shop on the way out the door? The answer might change everything. Maya Reeves, January 2026.